this is a current picture, so many people might not know who this is, but I went with the more current-ish crime than I usually do because this happened in, I think it was the mid to late 70s. And this is the son of Sam, which he's also known as David Berkowitz. Um, so I'm not gonna go really deep into it because there's a lot about this guy. I'm just gonna go over the main points. So he was born Richard David Falco on June 1st, 1953, in Brooklyn, New York. His mother gave him up for adoption when he was only a few days old. He was adopted by Nathan and Pearl Berkowitz, and they were just a regular working class. What? Did my power go out? Okay, no, I'm here. My light went off and then on. Sorry, guys.
Oh?
It's a hot mess every time I get on here. Okay. Anyways, a working class couple. What is going on with my electricity? My fan just went on and then off. I don't know what's going on. Okay, onward. A working class couple who raised him in the Bronx. Berkowitz had a troubled childhood. Though his adoptive parents were loving, he often felt abandoned and isolated. He developed behavioral problems, displayed violence towards animals, which we all know is never a good sign when it comes to the mental state. He struggled academically, though he did show intelligence in other areas. The unaliving of his adoptive mother from cancer, he was only 14, and he said this deeply affected him because I guess out of the two parents, you're not wrong, Loki. I need to stop looking at the chat. Okay.
Everybody tap, tap, tap.
Crap. Where did I leave off? Okay, when he was 14. He was closer to his mother than his father. His father later remarried and moved to Florida and pretty much left his son on his own. From 1971 to 1974, he served in the U.S. Army. He was stationed in South Korea as a marksman. He did end up with honorable discharge. No, don't say what I just said came to my head. Keep going. He returned to New York, and that's where his mental health... Huh?
He must have checked his pH balance.
Well, that's not what I was going to say, but I'll tell you later. Because I don't want to say it on live. Okay, yeah, his mental health. Okay. So, between July 1976... What are you laughing at? Oh, yourself? Okay. Like, what's it done?
It's the
Sure, guys, supposed to be serious. Serious face, Mallory. Serious face. Okay. Between July 1976 and July 1977, New York City was terrorized by a string of pew-pewings committed by Berkowitz. It was usually by a .44 Charter Arms Bulldog. That's the name of the pew-pew. He would target young women, often brunettes, or couples sitting in a parked car. So I made up a timeline of all of these events. I don't want to say the ATTACK. Okay, anyway. So his first one was July 29th, 1976 in the Bronx. Her name was Donna Loria. She was only 18, and she was unalived by Berkowitz, and her friend Jody was wounded while sitting in a parked car. A few months later, October 23rd, 1976, in Queens, Carl and Rosemary, they were a couple, they were pew-pewed while sitting in a car. Both survived, but Carl suffered permanent head injuries. November 27th, a month later. Same in Queens. Donna, who was only 16, and Joanne, who was 18, were pew-pewed while walking home. Joanne ended up paralyzed from the waist down. A couple months later, July 30th, 1977, the Bronx. Christine was unalived, and her fiancé John was wounded. Another couple months, March 8th, 1977, Queens, Virginia, who was 19. She was a Barnard college student. She was pew-pewed and unalived while walking home. Then April 17th, just 1 month later, the Bronx. Alexander and Valentina were both unalived in their car. There was a handwritten letter found nearby addressed to the NYPD captain. And this was the first time that Berkowitz left anything behind. And in this letter, he called himself the Son of Sam. June 26, 1977, Brooklyn. Judy and Sal were pew-pewed in their car, but they both thankfully survived. And then July 31st, 1977, Stacy and Robert were attacked while sitting in a parked car. Stacy was unalived, and Robert was blinded in one eye. And this ended up being Berkowitz's final attack. So, the letters in the Son of Sam persona, he would taunt police and the media with, like, rambling letters. They really weren't coherent. No one could make sense of what he was trying to say in them. They would bring in some people that tried to decipher them, thinking it was code, but it was honestly just ramblings of a man who was mentally unstable. He claimed he was being commanded to unalive by a demon that possessed his neighbor's dog. So a demon was speaking through a dog. And he was owned by a man named Sam Carr. In his letters, he called himself the Son of Sam. These communications were full of really strange references and almost like occult-like symbolism. Sometimes he would actually draw on them, and they were trying to understand that. But because even though social media wasn't around, the media ran with it so much, they would cause a frenzy. People panicked. The press ended up making him feel like he was almost a mythical creature, because there was this hype about him, like he was so mysterious. People didn't know what was going on. And New Yorkers, they said, were like just paralyzed by fear. Women would cut and dye their hair because they noticed that most of these women were brunettes, so they would make sure to like look completely opposite of the people he would target. And couples ended up not sitting in parked cars anymore. They would go inside their house and not be outside. So the police ended up forming a huge task force, and it was back then known as the largest manhunt in New York City. There was and then finally a break came when a woman reported that Berkowitz had been issued a parking ticket near the scene of the last unaliving attempt. So on August 10th, 1977, police surrounded his Yonkers apartment. Inside his car, they found the pew-pew, maps of the crime scenes, and another threatening letter. When the detectives arrested him, he apparently said, "Well, you got me. How come it took you so long?" I feel like that, I'm not gonna lie, it seems like something I would say.
I mean, he definitely was ready to go, it sounds like.
Yeah, it kind of almost feels like he gave up. Like he knew it was gonna happen, but he just felt like it should have happened sooner.
Yeah.
As far as I know, he still is in prison, but I'm gonna double check on that. But this is his current picture. Let's see. So he confessed to all of the pewings, but he initially claimed he was driven by demonic voices. He was found competent to stand trial, and in May of 1978, he pleaded guilty to all charges. He was sentenced, so yeah, after this part, I'm going to assume he's still in there. He was sentenced to 6 consecutive life terms, roughly 365 years. Unless the demon possesses him, I think he's going to unalive in there. While in prison, he became a born-again Christian in the 1980s and began calling himself the Son of Hope. I don't know, okay. Despite this, he remains incarcerated in New York, where he has repeatedly been denied parole. I would hope so. So they say that the Son of Sam has left a mark on American culture. I mean, pretty much anyone I've ever met, if you say Son of Sam, they know who you're talking about. They might not know all the details, but they know it was someone that was unaliving people and doing a lot of bad shit. He revealed flaws in law enforcement communications during all of this, because law enforcement in all of these different sections of New York, or do they call them bureaus? I don't know. But what was I gonna say? But he made the police, I guess, realize they weren't communicating as well, because they should have maybe connected the dots sooner, and the MO and all of that. Lisa, he got where was it again? He got 6 consecutive life terms, and it's about 365 years. It intensified the stranger danger fears in the late 1970s. Parents were more conscious about who their kids were with, about instilling in their kids, stranger danger. If you don't know them, don't talk to them. Don't go near anyone you know. So, New York passed the Son of Sam law, preventing criminals from profiting from selling stories about their crimes. So, in New York, if you do a bunch of crimes, you can send your stories all you want, but you can not profit off of them. The media frenzy surrounding the unalivings made him one of the most infamous serial unalivers in history. So, yeah.
They passed that law because the media was offering him like a shit ton of money, allegedly, and they were.
Yeah, there was also book offerings about his life and what he was going through, and I guess more people, from what I was reading, but it's not like in it, but this is just my generalized. But people wanted to know more apparently about the demonic voices. Like, did it just happen one day? Was he on something? They just wanted a whole thing. So.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Yeah.
Well, it said, Lisa, he was denied parole. Like, several times. So I don't know if he applied for it. But it says he was denied. And usually to be denied, wouldn't you have to apply?
Yeah, I doubt he tries too much. I would assume he's just doing it to do it for the attention or something. I think at this point he has to know he's probably not getting out.
Yeah, I know I saw there is a book talking about how he's a changed man. I don't know if he wrote it or if someone else did. I didn't look too much into the book.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess people can change, and maybe he was having mental issues, but that's a lot of people that he hurt and unalived. So up every 2 years for parole. Like I said, I don't know if he did it himself or if his lawyer is doing it automatically or if the state does it automatically. That part, I don't know how that works. But he could, like Mallory said, just be putting in like the most basic ass letter and not caring if he gets it or not.
Hi, everybody. Welcome in. Please don't forget to tap and let me know how you're doing in the comments to help kind of boost the live. We are in the middle of true crime, so it does help a lot, and I appreciate it. And also, it's Ari's birthday today, so don't forget to wish her a happy birthday.
It's your birthday, bitch.
Whoop,
Whoop whoop.
You guys are funny. Is it my turn now?
Yes, let me take my picture off.
Okay. Aries. You expanded the comments. Holy hell. There we go.
Don't do that, man.
Aries, birthday, Aries turn. Here we go.
Birthday Aries. Oh, Lord. Okay. And just so everybody knows, I'm turning 23 today. So yay me. Yay. Okay. This is about the Rafay family. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Oh my God. Thank you. Oh, wait. No, that was to Mama's Miracle.
I got something, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I was stepping away from my phone to get ice cream, and then I hear that was to Mama's Miracle.
No, I just saw the heart and I was like, oh, thank you. And then I looked at it and I was like, oh, wait, no, that was to Mama. But they sent me one anyways. So. Okay, I'm not going to look at my screen anymore. I'm sorry. So it's the Rafay family. They were born, they're all from Canada. There's, I feel like I'm going to butcher his first name, so I apologize. It's Dr. Tariq Rafay. And then the wife's name is Sultana Rafay, I believe. And then, of course, the person I'm talking about is the son is Antif Rafay. And I believe Sebastian Burns. Yeah, Sebastian Burns and Atif Rafay. So they're from Canada. Antif was considered very intelligent, introverted. He showed like an early interest in like books, philosophy, deep topics. He was described as like thoughtful to himself, sarcastic, but like again to himself mainly. And then there was Sebastian. He was also, they're both born in 1976. They're from a Canadian, or Sebastian was from a Canadian middle class family. He was more like outgoing, articulate. He enjoyed like intellectual conversations. And they met each other in high school. In North Vancouver, and they became like really inseparable, it says. They shared the same interests in culture and theater and like movies and controversial topics. So they, in like the summer of 1994, I guess they went to go visit Rafay's family in Bellevue, Washington. And I guess like the families, they knew each other very well. It seemed like it was a normal visit. Atif wanted to spend time with his family, and Sebastian just went along for a few days to go spend in the U.S. And kind of like plan for the future, it says. On July 12th of 1994, the dad and then his wife and then the daughter, they also had a daughter as well. I don't want to butcher her name. It says Basma, Basma. They were all found unalived in their home. The attack was extremely violent. I don't even know how to describe how they were all found, but it was just really, really bad. Like the injuries were just fatal. They were all found with like very bad cuts on them. And they were all near each other. Well, no, I guess the daughter and the mother were near each other, and then the father was found in his study away from them. It showed that they all died instantly. There was no signs of like prolonged ABUSC. And there was evidence to suggest that it was like sudden and quick. There's no like defensive wounds, and it suggests that they were very completely surprised. Atif and Sebastian said that they were both at the movies, and then they discovered them. They called the police, and they were very like calm about it, so that raised suspicion about it. Because there were no signs of a break-in and the family dog didn't bark, they were the first main suspects. Their alibi could not be fully confirmed. At first, investigators also considered whether the crime could be connected to like the family's background. And then that kind of fell apart. There was no evidence to that, and the two returned to Canada while they were investigating. So with like little evidence, the US authorities asked the Canadian police for help, and they decided to use I guess it's a controversial technique. It's called Mr. Big, is what they call it. It's an undercover operation known internationally, and it's widely debated. Two undercovers went and they entered into Atif and Sebastian's lives, seemingly by chance. They were posing as members of like to be criminals, and they built close relationships with them. They were gradually integrated into like their organization. They were given tasks. They were invited to events. Everything kind of like felt like a test. After months, they were asked to prove that they could be trusted by admitting like their past crimes and all that. So the officers knew details that only like a real perpetrator could know and guided the confessions very carefully. And the two saw that as like a... Sorry, my neighbor's dog is barking very loudly. The two, they saw that as like a test of loyalty and a chance to gain like recognition. And it was a trap. Everything they said and did was used against them. And in the end, they gave their confessions. They tried to appeal and say that it wasn't like a real confession and that it was given because they were manipulated. They weren't able to appeal with that, and with that confession, they were able to use that and convict them both for 3 life sentences.
Good. Really sad.
Yeah, it's a really sad thing. It said something in here about how they tried to appeal it in like 2004. I'm assuming they didn't win their appeal, because I haven't seen anything about them getting out or anything like that. Oh no, it says here at the bottom, as of 2025, they both remain in prison, and they're both 49 years old. They're both being held in Washington State, and they're both in the same facility apparently.
Did you say what the motive was? Sorry.
There is none.
Okay. I didn't think you had. Yeah.
They don't know why they did it. There's not really any motive. People are saying on here, because it's like, you know how they have those articles where you can make comments on them?
Mm-hmm.
People are saying on there that that the house was actually bugged for months.
Oh, okay.
There's multiple people agreeing on here that the house was actually bugged for months. Apparently, they did a Netflix documentary about it.
Ooh,
somehow the ones that I always talk about, they're like doing documentaries about it. And I never watch them. I need to watch them.
Yeah, I do too. I haven't been watching true crime. I need to do it again. Hi, everybody. Just a reminder, it's Aries' birthday, and we are doing true crime right now. So if everybody could tap the screen and comment. Let us know how you're doing, if there's any cases you want to hear us cover in the future. And Patricia, I have no idea what your comment is talking about, but I'm assuming, thank you. I'm assuming it wasn't about what we're talking about, because I would think that's a little weird. So I don't know who you're telling us. I don't know who you're saying is getting attention, and that's what they want. But you made like one comment and then nothing else came through. So anyways, Aries' birthday.
Thank you, Sunflower, and thank you, Katie.
All right, are you good?
Shit, I muted myself. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, all right. I will go ahead and get my stuff pulled up real quick.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
I feel like we kind of flip-flopped a little bit because I've done kids a couple times now. I did think about covering the case of Voices and her creepy ass white van, but I just feel as if it's a little too controversial because evidently people don't understand the difference between an adult napping and kidnapping. So, you know. Anyways, okay. So I'm going to talk about the murder of Vicki Lynne Hoskins, who essentially is the little girl that never came home. So some cases we know like leave a community shaken forever. And in 1984 in Tucson, Arizona, that happened when Vicki Lynne Hoskins went missing. So she was an 8-year-old girl whose disappearance sparked a desperate search, whose case exposed just how vulnerable children were in the 1980s, and whose unaliver turned out to be way closer than anyone had expected. So Vicki Hoskins was just 8 years old in 1984, and she lived in Flowing Wells, which is a working class suburb in Tucson, Arizona. She was described as bubbly, outgoing, somebody who loved her family. She loved riding her pink bike and playing outside like most kids did back then. And she was known a lot for her bright smile and her very adventurous spirit. She came from a loving family. Her mom, her dad, her sisters, they were all close-knit, very protective, and they basically felt as if their community was a safe space to live. And they did not expect what happened on the 17th of September in 1984, which was a Monday afternoon, and school had just let out. Vicki had one small errand. She basically wanted to ride her little pink bike to a nearby mailbox to mail a birthday card to her aunt. And it was only a couple blocks away. It wasn't far. So her mom, Debbie, agreed. And it was in the middle of the afternoon, bright daylight, and again, everyone who lives in this neighborhood thinks it's a safe space, and it wasn't something to like second guess. So Vicki hopped on her bike and she pedaled off, but she never came back. So when Vicki did not return home, her mom knew immediately that something was wrong, because she doesn't do that. She wouldn't have stayed out. She would have come home. So she started calling for her. Like, she searched nearby streets. She was asking neighbors if they'd seen her. And then at one point, she found Vicki's pink bike abandoned somebody found Vicki's pink bike abandoned on a dirt road, which was not that far from her house. And there was no sign of Vicki. So within a few hours, the police were called, and thankfully they did begin a search to look for her. Because we do know that there are many missing children cases where searches are not conducted as they should be done in the beginning. Now, Vicki's case essentially exploded into one of the largest searches in Tucson history at the time. There were hundreds of volunteers, police, and even FBI agents came out and combed the desert around the Flowing Wells community. Helicopters, dogs, and search parties were involved as well. And flyers with Vicki's face went up across all of Arizona. it was an extremely terrifying time for the community because, as you can imagine, you think you live in this safe area, and now you have this little 8-year-old girl who has done nothing to anybody, just missing. And it said that parents essentially stopped letting their kids get out of their sight, and flowing wells just kind of began to feel like it was under siege almost. So days pass and days turn into weeks, and there was just no sign of Vicki. So essentially, investigators had a few leads, but they had few leads, but they did start piecing together different things that other individuals from the neighborhood were coming to them and saying. And several witnesses had stated that they'd seen a suspicious car near where Vicki's bike had been found, which was a rust-colored hatchback. And there were a couple people who could basically swear that there was a man sitting inside watching children that were going by. And that man was identified as someone named Frank Atwood. Now, Frank Jarvis Atwood was 28 years old at the time that Vicki went disappeared. He had a long criminal history, including drug use and violence, and he actually was, disturbingly, a convicted P3 who had previously served time for assaulting an 8-year-old boy in California. He lived a transient lifestyle, and he would drift from place to place with his girlfriend, so he never really had a secure location. He was kind of up in the air, and he just was like a ticking time bomb waiting to happen. So when Atwood was questioned, he actually did admit to being in the area the day that Vicki disappeared, and witnesses would confirm later that they had seen his car as the vehicle that was around Vicki's bike. So police pretty much keyed in on him from the beginning, and they only had one issue, which was they still had not been able to find Vicki's body, and there was no physical evidence tying him to the crime other than the fact that people had seen him within the general vicinity of where Vicki's bike had been found. So, at this point, days have turned into weeks, the weeks turn into months, and they didn't stop searching for Vicki. The desert is really big around that area, and they continued looking, but there just were no concrete clues to indicate anything in relation to where Vicki went or if she was still alive or not. So it was really frustrating for investigators, obviously, and they essentially were, I think, frustrated more because they were pretty certain Atwood was the individual who did it and felt he was very guilty. But they didn't have any real evidence to prove that anything had happened to Vicki other than she was missing. So 7 months later, a hiker was out in the desert, and they made a discovery that kind of ended all of the waiting. Because in April 1985, there were skeletal remains found in a remote desert area that was northwest of Tucson. And they were able to use the dental records to confirm that it was Vicki Lynne Hoskinson. And the autopsy had showed that she had been unalived, but they couldn't really give an exact determination due to the condition of the remains. So this little girl, just a recap, went out to mail a birthday card to her aunt, never came home, and was found about 7 months later, unalived, and her bones are basically in a remote place in the desert. So when they found her body, investigators were finally able to build a little bit of a stronger case, or at least start to, because they now had clear proof that Vicki was not alive. So key evidence did include witnesses who had seen Atwood's rust-colored Datsun near where Vicki had disappeared, traces of pink paint on his car bumper that actually matched the paint on Vicki's bike, So at some point, his car and that bike had made contact. And then Atwood's history of being a convicted P3O. So in 1987, Atwood did go on trial for kidnapping Vicki Lynne, and the defense basically tried to argue that there was no evidence, no fingerprints, eyewitnesses to the actual abduction, and that being in a car around the area where this little girl was taken and eventually unalived proved nothing. But the jury saw through that and they convicted him of first degree murder and gave him the unaliving penalty. So the Hoskins family was obviously shattered, but they did vow to fight for justice in Vicky's name. So they were able to get some closure, at least with the finding and knowing that Atwood had been convicted guilty. He did spend decades on unaliving Roe, and he appealed his conviction again and again and again, but they never overturned it. The verdict stood, and in June 2022, nearly 40 years after Vicki had been unalived, Frank Atwood was executed by lethal injection in Arizona. And Vicky's family was there. For them, it was not closure because nothing can obviously bring her back, but it did feel as if for them it was the end of a decades long fight to get justice for their daughter. So she essentially was 8 years old and is a prime example of why stranger danger became like a big thing, and teaching kids not to go with strangers, but also, like staying alert of your surroundings and all of that. Yeah, I had never heard of this case before. This was really sad to me. Like, she just went out to do something nice for her aunt and never came home. Really, Mikla? Yeah, it was a sad case. Like, um, I can't imagine, like, I look at it weirdly maybe, but I can't imagine being the aunt knowing that like your niece went out to mail you a birthday card and that was the moment that she was like taken and never got to come home. um I mean, obviously not survivor's guilt, but I don't know what you'd call it. So hi, how's everybody doing though? Thank you guys for joining tonight. um if you didn't know, it's Ari's birthday, and I feel like we just need to say that again because she deserves all the love.
I will say one thing that when my kids were younger, because obviously now they know who's gonna pick them up, all of that. I mean, my son drives, so usually he's the one that gets my daughter. They have cell phones, so yeah. But when they were little, we came up with a code word that only my husband and myself knew. So if someone was to pick them up that they didn't know, it never happened. But my kids would have to ask them for the code word. If they didn't know it, they were to run to the nearest adult that they knew.
Yeah, that's smart. I think
So if anyone needed
today,
any tips.
I think today they you have to have like a person on a list for pickup, don't you? At least here, I'm pretty sure only the people who are on a list can pick you up.
Like if you go into the school, yes. Because even with my kids being in high school, when I would go to pick them up, I would have to show the camera my ID. And then they would
Yeah.
check the list and make sure I was on there. But there's unfortunately a lot of schools that have pickup lines. And when my kids were in elementary school, they wouldn't make sure it was someone they knew picking them up.
Well, I think that's what they've changed, at least around here, because the pickup lines are a little bit more strict now. At least here with our schools, I know they're a little bit more aware of the families who's picking up who, and if someone random shows up, like they have to be on a list. Yeah, you have to be on a list in Midwest Indiana.
Even when
Yeah,
I was
Emily,
young
in
though, bad. Even when I was young though, like my dad would tell us like I'm never going to have one of my friends come pick you up. If I ever have somebody pick you up, it's going to be your grandma or your auntie or like somebody family. Like, I'm never going to have somebody that's not family come pick you up. So if somebody ever comes up to you and says, "Hey, your dad said he's going to be late. I'm going to come pick you up," you tell him to F off because he's not picking you up today.
My
Sadly,
daughter was so rude
is the
when the one
family.
time I told her, I was like, hey, I'll never have any friends come pick you up. She's like, what friends? I was like, rude.
What friends? You didn't even have to tell her. Someone would have said, "I'm your mom's friend." She would have been like, excuse me, bitch?
I know you're a liar.
Like, my mom doesn't have friends? What the fuck are you talking about? Point your face. Her real friends would never come here and steal me if she had any.
Mm-hmm.
Nah,
I have
sadly,
two best friends, but she considers them aunts, so.
yeah. Sadly, though, it's the family a lot of times that does it at school. Like if there's a divorce going on or something. So, yeah, a lot of schools have lists now. Like even with the long form pickup, they're getting more and more cautious about things for sure. But
You'll notice that's why they would pick up like the younger kids because the really really younger kids they don't really know too much. Like
mhm.
if it's a child under like what 7 something like that, even around 7, like they don't really know too much better. So
Yeah, I agree. Sadly. And it's hard because you can tell kids something all day long, but the retaining and listening to it's going to be completely different because they don't even mean to disobey. It's just an adult. I don't know. That's the downfall, I think, of teaching kids to respect your elders, because when you teach kids not to talk back to adults, I think a lot of times kids become complicit because someone who's older is telling you to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I had a kid, I'd be like, not every adult is good. If they make you feel uncomfortable, say fuck you. I don't care. Judge me. I'd let my kids
Yeah.
say fuck you.
Well, and I was just thinking about your story. So you said on the car there was pink paint from her bike.
It was on his
Um,
bumper, like the bike had hit the bumper.
like I'm wondering if he hit her
Yeah, what I'm
and
wondering.
then just grabbed her up.
I
Was the
personally,
bike left behind?
yeah, the bike was left behind. So, I personally wonder if she was around the car and he grabbed her, maybe the bike fell onto the bumper or something. Because it would have had to have some force, you'd think, or some momentum to leave paint. Because if you just prop it up against there, you're not probably going to rip paint off the bike. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a good theory, though. Now we teach our kids to hold on tight to the bike. Dude, I'd be putting an air horn on a fucking bike and be like, if you ever have someone taking you, ring this thing and get them as close to it so you can ring it in their fucking ear. Oh, goodness gracious. I'm thinking. All right. I'm going to end this and then I'm going to come back so that way it's not like an extensively long recording, but I don't know if anything's going on or not, so drama. So we can see what's going on. But I will be right back. And again, everybody wish Aries a happy birthday because it is her birthday and she is amazing.
Happy birthday, bitch.
All right, I'll see you guys in a second. Bye. Shit, what's